basically we lost our home. It's not just a house, it's a home, it's Dad's heart, and it means so much to us. We lived like a poor life.
Yeah,
we could not afford to do anything. We had second-hand clothes and that was the best thing ever.
You saw the little shack that we grew up in, like it had a one bedroom.
With no electricity, no hot water.
Like,
it's heartbreaking.
It's a strange feeling. I drive past it every day. See the signs. It still feels that it's the Moloney household, and I'd like to see it go back to them.
This is the simple mud brick house that Robert Moloney spent more than 25 years building. It was once a vibrant family home, but now it sits vacant and overgrown.
I've been in Naranda all my life. My mother's family have been here since the 1880s. And my father moved down here as a farmer and has been a farmer down here for 50 years. I've always had a lot to do with this community. I don't think that there's too many people in this community that thinks that this was a fair and just thing that happened to me. I know they don't.
I know him, I see him have a few drinks with me at the bar at Boggy Creek every now and then over the years. And Robert's Robert, but he's 100% not a criminal.
That's where I had the marijuana growing in there, right next to that tap, right next to the apple tree. No fence, nothing around it. You could see it driving up the road. I never even used to just try hiding it. You drive up the road and see it growing.
I've seen these cases where people grow 5 plants with no intention ever to traffic any of that cannabis. And I think in those situations, if they're convicted of cultivating a commercial quantity of cannabis, then the consequence of losing their home is entirely disproportionate.
In the rural Victorian town of Naranda, just outside Warrnambool, Robert has been growing marijuana for personal use for most of his life, something that was largely ignored by local authorities for years.
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a smoker, you know. I've always smoked marijuana. A lot of people around here smoke marijuana. We always have.
But in 2008, the police knocked on his door and charged Robert with cultivating and trafficking a commercial quantity of cannabis.
And you've never made a single cent from selling any of it?
No, never sold none of it. And the police went through all this. There was no drug paraphernalia when it comes to selling it. There was no text messages. There was no proceeds of crime. There was no unexplained wealth. There was no cash.
The police found no evidence that Robert was dealing drugs and dropped the trafficking charges. While the police admitted that Robert was not selling marijuana, he was still charged with cultivating a commercial amount, a charge that allowed the state to take Robert's home.
I'm sure the average person who's got more than the commercial quantity of marijuana, and as I say, in Warrnambool you put your feet on the ground, marijuana will grow out your ears, they will have no idea whatsoever that their home, in many cases, will be the subject of removal from them, automatically. It's an essential problem with the law, there's no doubt.
Fran O'Brien QC has been a barrister for nearly 30 years. She took on Robert's case pro bono. She says the state never should have been able to seize Robert's home.
The Confiscation Act is fine, and it's good legislation if it does what the Parliament speakers say it is intended to do, that is to requisition the goods of serious serial offenders in the drugs industry. The facts are such that Mr Moloney was not in the drugs industry. He's a small-time user of cannabis. He and all his family have been dramatically affected by the confiscation of a very humble home and means of making a living.
Oh wow!
Yeah, look, brother, it's bananas.
Well, the Confiscation Act was brought in, no doubt, to get the Mr Biggs, the Tony Mockbells of the world, and it was for big-time criminals. People who make profit out of crime should not be able to keep those profits.
State MP John Vogel went into bat for Robert in Parliament, calling his case a miscarriage of justice.
In Robert Moloney's case, it went completely out of kilter because he was a small-time, growing a few marijuana plants and somehow got caught up in this legislation, which he never should have.
Fran O'Brien fought the state for nearly 2 years to help Robert get his house back, but ultimately they were unsuccessful.
I mean, I think it's a profoundly wrong ruling, but the law is an extremely blunt instrument in this area.
The only thing that I thought that could ever lose your place if you've got the proceeds of crime and you got caught trafficking.
Seizing Robert Moloney's house has made the state no money. They've spent thousands of man-hours pursuing the house, a house that couldn't even be sold at auction.
All I know is, which I did say in the Parliament whenever I raised it, this will probably cost $500,000, which the taxpayer will finish up footing the bill for, because Robert was never going to be able to pay the legal fees. If he lost, no way. He hasn't got any money. And secondly, the property, as it turned out, is not sellable.
Robert is now homeless, moving between friends' houses.
Like at one stage, Robbie was living in one of the sheds here. It's full of rats. There's no facilities there, but that's where he was living, with all his goods and chattels around him. And his kids used to come and stay there in a shed.
Traditionally, proceeds of crime legislation has been for the purpose of depriving people of the proceeds of criminal activity, but the way in which the legislation operates is far more wide-reaching than that. People can lose property even though it was legitimately acquired. If one were cynical about it, one might think that that is because this area of the law provides a fair bit of revenue for the government.
I haven't got any plans. I ain't going nowhere until home is sorted out. I'm staying here. I'm staying in Naranda.
The full weight of the law was brought down on this bloke. He's getting older, his health is not great. There's no doubt that Robert Moloney committed a crime, but it just seems that the punishment that's been meted out to him is far in excess of really what should have been intended, I think.